My golden child sister collapsed, crying when she found out I sold my company for $25 million. My father screamed that I stole her future. 2 days later, someone tried to wire $18 million out of my account. The bank alert arrived at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, and I sat up in bed and read it 3 times before I allowed myself to understand what I was reading. Outgoing wire transfer initiated. $18,000. Destination account, Holloway Family Trust. Authorization, pending verification. My coffee was still brewing. The sun was not fully up. Outside my apartment window in Austin, the city was doing the quiet, ordinary work of becoming morning. Delivery trucks, a jogger, the particular amber light of early Texas sun on downtown glass. Inside my apartment, someone had attempted to move $18 million out of my account while I was sleeping. I picked up my phone and called my attorney. Then I called the bank's fraud line. Then I sat on the edge of my bed for 4 minutes and thought about my father's voice 2 days earlier, the specific register of it, the way it had cracked through the phone at 9 p.m. on a Sunday when I had finally told my parents what I had been waiting the right moment to tell them, the moment that had apparently not been the right moment. And I thought about my sister Claudia's crying, which had been real. I believe it was real. The specific grief of someone who has just discovered that the world they believed was arranged in their favor has rearranged itself while they weren't watching. And I thought about the Holloway Family Trust, which was my father's entity, which meant my father had tried to wire $18 million out of my account at some point between Sunday evening and Tuesday morning. I sat with that for 4 minutes. Then I got up, poured my coffee, and went to work. My name is Serena Holloway. I am 34 years old. I am the founder and, as of 6 weeks ago, former CEO of a company called ClearPath Analytics, which built compliance automation software for mid-sized financial institutions, which is exactly as unglamorous as it sounds and exactly as necessary, and which I had started in my spare bedroom in 2017 with $40,000 in savings and a problem I had identified working as a junior analyst at a bank that shall remain unnamed, and a conviction that I could build a better solution than anything currently on the market. I had been right about that. 6 weeks ago, I had signed the acquisition agreement with a firm called Meridian Capital Group, $25 million. Clean deal, clean terms, a 2-year consulting arrangement that would keep me involved in the product development while freeing me from the operational weight I had been carrying for 7 years. I had told no one in my family until Sunday. This was not an accident. My family is not like that. Let me give you the full picture, because the wire transfer makes no sense without it. My father, Gerald Holloway, is 62. He spent 30 years in commercial insurance, built a mid-tier brokerage, sold it in 2018 for a number he described to people as a very comfortable exit, and which I had, through the specific professional knowledge of someone who works in financial software and can read industry filings, estimated at closer to $3.2 million than the implied figure his tone suggested. He was not a bad man. He was a man whose self-image had been built on a particular understanding of his position in the family hierarchy, the provider, the authority, the one whose financial judgment was unquestioned, and he had spent the years since his exit in the specific restless state of someone whose identity was professional and whose profession was now past tense. My mother, Linda, is 59. She had been a dental hygienist for 23 years and had retired when my father sold the brokerage, and she had organized her retirement around 2 things: her garden and her daughter Claudia. Not both daughters, her daughter Claudia. I want to be precise about that distinction, because it is the structural fact of my entire childhood and adult life, and pretending otherwise would make everything that follows incomprehensible. My sister Claudia is 31. She is 3 years younger than me and has been for as long as I have had a clear memory, the daughter the family was about. Not because she was more loved. I have thought about this carefully, and I believe the love was real and equal in whatever way love can be equal, but because she was more visible. Her needs landed louder, her achievements were announced, her difficulties were absorbed by the whole family as collective difficulty, while my difficulties were noted and filed and expected to resolve themselves because Serena was capable and Claudia needed support. Claudia had been working for the past 4 years at my father's former brokerage, which the acquirers had retained under new management, in a mid-level client relations role that my parents described as building her career in financial services, and which her LinkedIn profile described with 3 bullet points that had not changed since 2021. She had mentioned at 3 consecutive Thanksgiving dinners that she wanted to start her own business someday. She had not started it. What she had done at the most recent Thanksgiving was mentioned to my parents, and this I know because my mother mentioned it to me in a call in January, in the specific tone of someone sharing information they believe the listener should feel guilty about, that she had a real vision but needed capital, and that if the family had resources, it would make a significant difference. The family did not, at that point in January, have resources of the kind Claudia was implying. 6 weeks later, it did. I was the resources. I had known about the acquisition for 4 months before I told my family. This is the thing people find most surprising when I describe the sequence, and it is the thing I am most precise about defending, because the 4 months were not secrecy for its own sake. They were the specific patience of someone who has learned through long experience that information given to her family before she is fully standing on solid ground becomes something they act on rather than something they receive. I had sold my company. The deal was signed. The money was in a trust account administered by my attorney, a woman named Patricia Owens, who had been my legal counsel since the company's 3rd year and who had the specific quality of someone who has seen enough family situations adjacent to business transactions to have strong opinions about sequencing. "When are you telling your family?" she had asked at the closing meeting. "When I'm ready," I said. "Ready meaning what? Specifically?" "Ready meaning the account structure is in place, the tax treatment is finalized, and I have had enough time to understand what I'm holding before anyone else knows I'm holding it." Patricia had looked at me over her glasses with the expression of someone who has heard many variations of this answer and considers this one of the better ones. "Give me 60 days. She said, "and I'll have the structure airtight." I gave her 60 days. Then I called my parents on a Sunday evening in October and told them what had happened. My father's reaction arrived in 3 stages. Stage 1, silence. Approximately 8 seconds of it, the specific silence of someone receiving information that is restructuring their understanding of a situation they believed they understood. Stage 2, the question. Not congratulations, or that's incredible, or any of the things that a different kind of father might have said first. The question was, how much? I told him. Stage 3, the reframing. It happened fast. I have thought about this many times since. The speed of it, the way his mind moved directly from the number to its implications, without any intermediate processing of what the number meant about my work, or my years, or my life. "Claudia has been trying to get her business off the ground," he said. "This is a real opportunity for the family." I waited. "She needs capital, Serena. You know that. You've always had more. More drive, more opportunity, more everything. This is the moment where you give something back. Give something back," I said, "to your sister, to this family. We gave you everything that made you who you are." I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment, because it matters to the rest of this story. I did not feel rage. I did not feel the hot, immediate emotion of someone who has been blindsided. I felt the specific cold recognition of someone who has heard a particular argument their entire life and is hearing it for the first time in its fully explicit form. We gave you everything that made you who you are. What they had given me was a childhood, a family, the specific formation of a person who grew up knowing she was not the one the family was organized around and who had decided, at some point in her early 20s, to stop waiting for that to change and to build something instead. The something I had built was now $25 million, and my father's first complete thought was that it belonged to Claudia. I said, "I'll think about it." I did not think about it. What I did was call Patricia Owens and tell her what he had said, and she said, "The account protections we put in place are exactly for this. Don't move anything and don't promise anything." I didn't move anything. I didn't promise anything. 2 days later, at 6:47 a.m., someone tried to move $18,000 anyway. I need to tell you about the account structure, because the wire transfer only makes sense in the context of what my father knew and what he believed he could access. Patricia had structured the acquisition proceeds through a personal trust, the Serena Holloway Revocable Trust, which held the full $25 million. The trust had one trustee, me. It had one beneficiary, me. It required my personal authorization with 2-factor verification for any outgoing wire above $10,000. What my father had done, what I pieced together from the bank's fraud investigation over the following week, was attempt to initiate a wire through a joint account that my parents and I had maintained since I was 22, a small account, originally set up so I could contribute to household expenses when I was starting the company, and occasionally needed to transfer money to them. It had a few $1,000s in it. It was not connected to my trust, but the destination account my father had specified, the Holloway Family Trust, was the same account he had attempted to route $18,000 through. The bank's system had flagged the destination account as associated with my profile through the old joint account relationship. This is the part that took me a long time to understand fully. My father had not attempted to steal from me directly. He had attempted to use a legitimate old account relationship to create a transfer that he may have believed, and this is the charitable reading, and I have thought hard about whether the charitable reading is accurate, that I had implicitly agreed to. The less charitable reading is that he knew exactly what he was doing and was moving before I could finalize the account separation. Patricia, when I described the situation to her at 8:30 that Tuesday morning, was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer it honestly." "Okay," I said. "Did you at any point in the Sunday phone call or at any other time say anything that could be construed as agreement to share any portion of the proceeds with your family?" "No," I said. "Did you say anything that could be construed as openness to discussing it?" I said I'd think about it. Another pause. "Okay," she said. "That's manageable. Don't talk to your father until you've talked to me again. I'll call you at noon." The wire transfer had been formally declined and flagged by the bank's fraud prevention system. The flag would remain on the account for 90 days, and any subsequent transfer attempt to the Holloway Family Trust would be automatically automatically blocked. The second, the joint account, the small household expense account my father had used as the attempted pathway, was being closed, effective immediately, per my request. A formal notice would be sent to all joint account holders, which meant my parents would receive notification of the closure with the reason cited as account holder request following unauthorized transfer attempt. The third, a cease and desist letter had been drafted, addressed to Gerald Holloway, formally notifying him that any further attempt to access, transfer, or otherwise act upon funds held in the Serena Holloway Revocable Trust or any account in my name would result in immediate referral to law enforcement for investigation of wire fraud. The fourth item. Patricia paused before the fourth. I've also spoken to a colleague in family law, she said. Given the Sunday phone call, specifically your father's language about what the family gave you and his framing of your proceeds as family resources, there's a pattern here worth documenting, not for litigation necessarily, for record. What kind of record? I said. The kind that makes any future claim that you agreed to share the proceeds very difficult to sustain. I sat with that. Do it, I said. Already started, she said. My father called me 11 times between Tuesday morning and Thursday afternoon. I answered once on Wednesday because Patricia had advised me to answer once, briefly, and to say only what she and I had agreed I would say. I know about the wire attempt, I said, when he started talking. Silence. Patricia Owens has sent you a letter, I said. Please read it before you call me again. Serena, I want to explain. I know you do, I said. Read the letter first. I ended the call. My mother called 4 times. I did not answer. She left one voicemail, which I listened to once, which lasted 6 minutes and 20 seconds, and which covered the following. How hard they had worked to give me opportunities. How much Claudia needed this. How I had always been the capable one, and capability came with responsibility. How the family had expected something different from me. And, at the 5-minute and 40-second mark, the sentence that I have thought about most in the weeks since. Your father didn't think you'd mind. He thought you'd understand. He thought I wouldn't notice. He had tried to move $18 million at 6 in the morning because he thought I wouldn't notice. I have turned that over many times, looking at it from different angles, trying to find the version of it that is not what it appears to be. I have not found that version. Claudia called once, on Friday. She did not call to explain or to apologize or to distance herself from what our parents had done. She called the way Claudia calls when she has been told to call, with the specific energy of someone executing an assigned task. Mom and Dad are really upset, she said. I know, I said. They feel like you blindsided them. Claudia? I said. Did you know about the wire transfer? A pause. I knew Dad was going to talk to the bank, she said. I didn't know he was going to. She stopped. I didn't think it would be like that. What did you think it would be like? Another pause. I thought he'd convince you, she said. I sat with that for a long moment. I need to go, I said. Serena, take care of yourself, Claudia. I said. I mean that genuinely. I ended the call. The legal process following the wire attempt was not dramatic. It was documentation and patience, which is what legal processes actually are when the movies are not involved. Patricia's cease and desist had the intended effect. No further transfer attempts were made. The bank's fraud flag remained active. The joint account was closed. My father retained his own attorney, a man named Douglas Mercer, who contacted Patricia in the second week with a letter suggesting that the wire transfer had been a miscommunication, stemming from a reasonable belief on my father's part that family discussions had produced an implicit agreement regarding the distribution of proceeds. Patricia's response to this letter took 45 minutes to draft and covered 5 pages. The central points were: no agreement had been made, explicit or implicit. The attempt to transfer funds had occurred before any family discussion had concluded, and the use of a joint account as a transfer pathway, given the proceeds were held in a separate trust entirely, indicated an intent to exploit an account relationship rather than act on a reasonable belief. Douglas Mercer did not send a follow-up letter. My father's position, as relayed through subsequent family communication, shifted from "we had an agreement" to "she should have been more clear" to "this is not who we raised her to be," which is the specific progression of someone who has run out of factual ground and retreated to moral ground, which is less verifiable and therefore more defensible. I am a fair person. I want to be as fair as I can about my father in this account. He is not a criminal in any formal sense. The bank's fraud team reviewed the attempt and concluded that the evidence for criminal intent was insufficient for a referral, which I accepted because I had not sought criminal prosecution and was not seeking it now. He is a man who had a number of things happen at once. His professional identity had been diminished by retirement. His understanding of family structure was being disrupted by the news of my sale, and his instinct was to act before he had fully thought through what acting meant. These are explanations, not defenses. There is a difference. What he had done was wake up before dawn and try to move $18 million out of my account. The explanation doesn't change the shape of what he did. Patricia and I met for coffee in November, 6 weeks after the Tuesday morning alert. She was not my attorney in that moment. We were 2 people who had been through something together and had coffee because coffee was appropriate. How are you? She said. I'm fine, I said. Actually fine. She looked at me with the measured attention of someone who has learned to distinguish between the two. The trust structure is complete, she said. The old joint account is closed. The accounts are separated fully. There is no pathway between your finances and your family's that doesn't go through your explicit authorization. Good, I said. What happens now with them? She said. I don't know yet, I said. I know what doesn't happen. I know nobody is accessing my accounts. Beyond that, I'm still figuring out. She nodded. Your father's attorney sent one more note, she said. Informal, asking whether you'd be open to a mediated family conversation. I looked at my coffee. Not yet, I said. That's a fine answer, she said. I have been seeing a therapist since November. Her name is Dr. Angela Reeve. 16 years of practice in family systems and entrepreneurial stress, which is a specific combination that exists because the intersection of building something from nothing and managing family expectations about what you build it into is a particular kind of psychological terrain. She has a question she asks regularly. When did you first understand that your success was going to be received as something you owed rather than something you earned? I've been thinking about that answer for 2 months. What I have so far, I understood it at 22, when I told my parents I was leaving the bank job to start something of my own. And my father's first question was, what would happen to my health insurance? And my mother's first question was whether Claudia could be involved in any way, because Claudia had been expressing interest in entrepreneurship. I had been expressing interest in entrepreneurship for 3 years at that point, but Claudia's interest arrived after mine and was received as equally important. That was the moment. I started the company anyway. I built it anyway. I sold it for $25 million anyway. The anyway is the whole story. I went to the Texas Hill Country last month, a long weekend, a rental house outside Fredericksburg, the specific combination of old oak trees and limestone, and absolute quiet that part of Texas provides if you find the right spot. I brought 3 books, good coffee, and my laptop, and I spent 4 days thinking about what comes next. Not in the anxious way, in the specific, deliberate way of someone who has cleared one thing and is taking time before building the next. ClearPath Analytics had been built because I saw a problem and believed I could solve it and was right about that. The next thing would be built the same way, on the same terms, in my own time, without asking permission, without waiting for anyone to see the vision before I built the vision. On the last evening, I sat on the porch of the rental house and watched the sunset, which in that part of Texas is the kind of sunset that makes you understand why people write songs about the state. I thought about the bank alert, about 6:47 a.m., and $18 million, and my father waking up before dawn to try to take something that was not his. And I felt not rage, not hurt, not the complicated grief of family, something simpler, something like resolution. He had tried. It hadn't worked. I had built the thing. The thing was mine. The next thing would be mine too. Patricia sent me a final document last week, the formal closure of all proceedings related to the transfer attempt. Signed, filed, complete. I printed it. I put it in the same folder as the acquisition agreement. $25 million and the attempt to take 18 of it and the legal structure that made sure it failed. The folder is in my filing cabinet, not to look at. To know is there, because real things deserve to be documented, and documented things are harder to revise.